The life of the year is 13 moons, with every season round. The life of the king shall pass likewise from birth unto the ground. Merry meet Annie here. That is a bit of a snippet of a Lammas poem. I've seen it attributed to Oberon Zell. In fact, I read it in his circle book, which was quite some time ago. But it's been around longer than that, so let's consider it a traditional poem honoring Lammas. This video is on Lammas. Viewers mentioned to me this past week that they were searching my old videos for one on Lammas because they know that I like to do videos for all of the holidays, and there wasn't one there. I couldn't believe it, and I went to search, and indeed, there wasn't one there. I have one on making oils and incense for Lammas, but I don't have a general celebration of Lammas video, so we're correcting that now. The video is not going to be short, so those of you who are truly interested in my take on it, you might find it of value. Others might find it a bit too long for your taste. Also, I'm going to be reading a lot. Oh, they're my words. But when I put notes together today to do something for you, I gathered together things I'd written and collected. And that's the base of what I'm sharing about Lammas. So, you're going to see me looking down. Where are we? Where are you in the year's journey? We're at Lammas, or Lunasa, one of the four greater Sabbats, the cross-quarter days of Imbolc, Beltane, Lammas, and Samhain. You might consider its date to be this Thursday, August 1st, with it being August 1st every year, or maybe you're like me, and in each year you celebrate it on the true cross-quarter date between the summer solstice and the autumnal equinox. This year, that's August 7th. In each turning, we consider what the land teaches us, what the gods teach us, and who we are and can yet become when we align to the wisdom of the season and the gods. Lammas is directly tied to the earth as an honoring of the power of the sun to give life and of the season of the first harvest, the sum of that life. There are 3 holidays in the Wheel of the Year celebration, this first being Lammas, the harvest of grain. Then we get to Mabon, which is the harvest of fruits, and according to where you live, it can be nuts too. And then we come to Samhain, the 3rd harvest, the harvest of blood, which we can look at in 2 ways. In the natural world, it's the harvesting of animals, farm animals we use to survive, our food, and it's also the harvest of blood in the sense of death in all its guises. We'll make sure we talk about those things when we get to Mabon and Samhain, if I haven't already. In the Northern Hemisphere at the time I'm recording this, it's the beginning of decline in the natural world. Everything at its height, but poised at the moment of either becoming harvest or decay. In a way, everything is about as good as it's going to get. We ask ourselves then, what about us is at its peak? What about us is at our zenith? What about us needs to give over and release? If we're brave enough, we'll even ask ourselves what we have let to rot within us and around us through our inattention and our drift of focus. It's a time to take ourselves to task for that. The season isn't about inactivity. Ask any gardener or farmer about that, and they'll tell you there aren't enough hours in the day for all that must be done before fall arrives. There's the hard work of harvest, and then there's the equally hard work of tidying up. The season reminds us it's time to consider that we, like the land, will journey into a darker time. There are things to harvest, and, you guessed it, there are things to tidy up. This is the moment to explore our relationship with birth and death, rise and fall, promises and falterings. An elder in my circle once referred to Lammas as the time to pack our bags. To prepare for the journey into the darkness to come, we need to consider what matters the most, pack it up, and have it ready to take with us. Kind of a bug-out bag for life. That leaves us, though, to deal with whatever we aren't packing. For the truth is, we can't take it all with us. We aren't meant to, at both the physical and spiritual levels. We might question, what will we choose to harvest? At the spiritual level, we're left standing with a packed bag and a large pile of things that didn't make it to our suitcase for the year. It's about what's in the bag. It's also about those things we did not pack. There is time. We're reminded of that in the power of the 3 harvest festivals spread over time and considerations we might give to each. This is not work that can be done in one day or even in the turning of a new season, but this is not the time to put off time. It's the time to celebrate what has come to fruition, and it is the time to consider what will naturally, or out of need, be left behind. Nothing is wasted. Anything we consider in our lives that needs to be left behind is something we have learned and becomes, as in the natural world, fodder for our way forward. We had better be prepared come Mabon, though, for that is when, aligned to the season, we run out of time to tend to the untended. We consider, with every turning of the natural wheel, the gods within that turning, what they're teaching us from, how we might perceive them, the stories we might tell about them, the wisdom those stories impart. Very much so at Lammas, it's the story of the god. And very specifically, it's about the god and the hero's journey. Think back to Beltane for a moment. The goddess asks the god to come to her at that turning of the year. He's at first, of course, most eager to come to her. He's lost in lust and the pleasures, the simple pleasures of being with her. She says, though, it's not just your seed that I want. I need your life-giving force and your life. I need all that you have to give. The god's at first taken aback by that request. His beloved is saying, thank you very much for the fun we've been having, but now I want more. His response is one of the most powerful poems within the Wiccan world of beautiful poetry. It moves me every time I consider. He says to her, I fear to take this kinship, for before me I see blood on the corn, the shadow of my death. Thus begins the hero's journey. This is from a piece that I wrote a while ago. Throughout the wheel of the year, the Wiccan god has in common with countless journeys taken by the gods, the journey of a hero. Joseph Campbell, in The Hero with 1,000 Faces, addresses the archetypal hero who sets out to achieve great deeds on behalf of something other than self-interest. The hero is presented with challenges. He has the option to decline them. He must find the higher purpose behind the sacrifice he will make. He then takes on the challenge, persisting no matter the trials, remaining true to his commitment. Invariably, when he reaches his goal, he pays the ultimate price, almost always his death. His death, though, is rarely the end of his story, as he will, as Campbell refers to it, return with the elixir. In the end, he is the gift of life. Our God, the hero, teaches us about clear decision-making and a way forward on behalf of the greater good. He's the power of sovereignty in both of its aspects, the power of kingship in community, and the power of governing oneself. We learn through his journey the absolute authority of dominion, declaring who we will be and doing what it will take to accomplish that with unswerving devotion. We present ourselves with the hero's challenge. What do I care about so completely that I will immerse myself in its pursuit with all of my being? It is only through our personal sovereignty, becoming whole within ourselves, that we undertake this journey. As the hero teaches us beginnings, devotion, and endings, releasing to a greater good, he declares time as sacred. Chronos is one of his aspects, chronos embracing anenki, the concept of the passing of time and inevitability. Death is inexorable. We, like he, will pass. Our passing is as much in the small passings of daily life as it is in our physical demise. Time confines our lives between birth and death and teaches the power of action within that domain. Like the hero, we decide our greater purpose and we devote our lives to that. In the seasons of our years, we are challenged and become our better selves. At Lammas, we honor what we have accomplished through our devotion and action, and with our hero eyes, we see clearly what we may yet bring to fruition with renewed effort. We see we are, as we knew we could be and would be, the better for that, complete within ourselves and align with our highest self and the greater good. Here's some questions we might consider in light of that piece of my writing. What do we hold more important than ourselves? And what will we sacrifice in order to protect that? When have we assumed or shirked responsibilities that are greater than our self-interest? What can we honor in the turn of the wheel to this point that represents the small and immense beginnings in our lives? Have we properly honored them? Have we appropriately seen them to their ending? Have we honored time as sacred? Or have we let it pass without acknowledging it as a gift? And how are we better as individuals and community members than we were at the turning into Imbolc or at Lammas last year? When we ask ourselves these questions, we might find that we have disappointed ourselves or others. But one of the lessons of Lammas is that it is not too late. As in what I wrote, with our hero eyes, we see clearly what we may yet bring to fruition with renewed effort. It's not the time of year to come to a halt. It is the time of year to make a focused and concerted effort and let go of any tendency we have to drift. To put it bluntly, it's a time to take no excuses. It's a deal with shit and move on time of the year. That is, if we truly live into the meaning of the season. From what I've shared in this writing, we can see the power of, power. Coming to our own strength. We see the significance of sacrifice. In the big picture, that is something as grand as the God who serves a purpose, fulfills it, and must then die. It's also in the small places in our lives where anything has run its course and must end. This is truly about both the small and the large sacrifices, the small and the large endings, the need for withdrawal in order to return. As strong as the God is in the wheel of the year, He cannot give and give and give. He and we need to withdraw in order to contemplate, release, and move on. We need to rejuvenate just as the earth does in its time of darkness from Mabon through Yule. It is about power, and it is just as much about knowing when it's time to release that power. I saw a blog post this past week that compared the aspect of surrender in this season to that of Shavasana in yoga. Shavasana sometimes is at the beginning of your time doing yoga, most often at the end. And with all yoga poses, it has a name, and this one is the corpse pose. You're simply lying on the floor in a place of total relaxation. The blog I read had a theme that there comes a time when stillness and release of tension is the way forward. And the blogger compared it to the total release of Shavasana. As she said in the blog, we simply let Earth hold us. That's the position you're in for Shavasana, why it's called the corpse pose. A giving over, a sinking in to the earth. In the light of the seed of the God buried within the earth from now until Yule, I will not enter Shavasana again without knowing that in that moment I'm one with him. I love it when different traditions come together and lead to a moment of insight. In Catherine's blog post, which you can read on thewayoftheriver.com, she asks us to consider that at Lammas tide, we practice what she's calling the graceful art of relinquishment. She's a Unitarian Universalist minister and a Wiccan. Her blog is very inspirational, and you might want to check it out. Again, thewayoftheriver.com. Relinquishment. Whether we handle it gracefully or with struggle, I'm about 50-50 on that. How about you? It's about acceptance that endings happen in every moment of our lives. When I end my circles, when I'm thanking everything that I need to thank at the end, I thank the ancient ones with this poem. You who teach that death is the passing of life, and that life is the stringing together of small passings. You who know the true meaning of sacrifice. Small passings, large passings, truly the sum of our living, and as importantly, what we do with the time within and between each of the cycles of birth and death in our lives. Lammas. It's the time to sit down with what we know and what we still need to learn. It's the time to sit down with what we've done and what we still need to do. We made promises in the tender season. Oh, so many months ago now it seems. They were about what we would do and who we would become in the next turning. And those turnings have been flowing onward, and indeed, we've arrived in the moment of accountability. Those promises were personal. They were also commitments outside of ourselves. It's the time to look in the mirror into our own eyes, and if I may say so, into the eyes of our God, and ask ourselves if we have honored our promises. When we have not, we ask ourselves, why not? And we start to realize that whenever we make an excuse as to why not, we need to take the time, and this is the time, to know that there is much to learn from what is behind the promises we kept and those we did not. From my book of shadows, and I apologize because I don't have a note of the author. Maybe one of you will know it and can share it with me. I like to give credit, even in my book of shadows, where things come from, and I'm frustrated when I fail to do that. Each hard-drawn grain, eked from Earth's experience, becomes a pattern of the whole. In my time of less wisdom, I thought to become a large field, a flaxen, waving wheat, covering a vast part of the land. Yet now I know each kernel I glean speaks part of my truth, fitting together side by side in the gentle spiral of my life. What kernels have you gleaned from the last turnings of the wheel? They are the seeds of who you are becoming. It is, though, not just about the god at Lammas. We are coming to know the goddess as she who grieves. In her words, again with my apologies that I don't have the author, although it's pretty much traditional and shows up constantly in our circles. She speaks. He shall be cut down in the corn for me. He shall lie upon the warm earth for me. He shall give his life to the land for me. He shall renew the world. He shall be cut down in the corn for me. He shall be sustenance for all. Take these, his gifts of land and heart. I take him into my embrace and whisper into his last breaths. Die not, my love, but live. Fall not, my love, but renew. We grieve with her. That's why my tears. For all that is past, for dreams that become dim, for the touch on our lives of those who are no longer with us. For ourselves, we are the goddess who grieves, and we are also the one who must depart. She teaches us that it is okay to be with our moments of grief. Goddess knows more about graceful relinquishment than we can ever hope to. From her first union with her lover, who will become her partner and king, she knows Kronos is very present in their relationship. Time will run out over and over. She knows she will grieve again as she has countless times before. The one who is left behind when things fall to their end around her. She, like we, must come to term with endings. She has the gift of knowing why and understanding the role everything plays in its own rebirth. She reminds us to explore the role we play in our own rebirth. Death is not just fate. It is the necessity of continuing vitality. We need to grieve the parts of us which have come to their ending time, and we need to explore grace in relationship to the farewells we need to say and the actions that reinforce them. This is from Ed Fitch. As day follows night, this must come to pass. For all things must rise and fall, and only the goddess remains the same. So it was, so it is, and so it shall be. And one last poem, this from Lady Sheba. As I return my video to the shot it began with, it's a picture of my Lammas altar from quite some time ago. Farewell, O sun, ever returning light, the hidden God who ever yet remains, who now departs to the land of youth through the gates of death, to dwell enthroned, the judge of gods and men, horned leader of the hosts of air, yet ever as he stands unseen about the circle, so dwelleth he within the sacred seed, the seed of newly ripened grain hidden in earth, the seed of the stars. In him is life, and life is the light of man. That which was never born can never die. So the Wicca weep not, but rejoice. I wish you all mirth and reverence in the season of Lammas. Merry part.